Okay, here's an example of how science and spirituality can work together, at least metaphorically. I saw this show the other day on the Science Channel or something like that, and it's probably the Science Channel. And this dude came up with this idea where all these millions or whatever the number is of 23-inch, maybe trillions of these 23-inch like lenses. What happens, the light goes into the lens and then it gets diffracted. And he was imagining all these trillions of things between us and the sun at the distance at which they stay in place perfectly. And he said, this will return us on the planet to pre-industrial age kind of temperatures. So the Arctic and Antarctic poles will be like really in balance so that the sea levels won't rise. And they're talking about it in terms of what will it cost, what will it cost. Well, when we can get back all of this identification with who owns what, we can say, hey, if resources aren't shared, then we will create environmental catastrophes and increased droughts and intense hurricanes. So it doesn't frickin' matter, This is an opportunity for people from all over the world to start to say, hey, I don't care what it costs my resources, just like all these people joining together to fight a war if they're on the same side, Britain and Russia and the United States fighting together at one point, and there's a bonding, but then there's a paranoia. It's all this family dynamics being acted out. And, there was this thought that I had about how, when you were talking earlier about just spending a lot on artistic supplies. And so there was a struggle between, you felt maybe you weren't being responsible, and I would, challenge you to not spend money that you didn't have if you weren't paying taxes or having to structure a payment and stuff. And so what I thought was that this lens is guilt. This lens, as a metaphor, is guilt. There's the source, which is our inner knowing. That's the sun. There's a sun in our heart. And then there is earth, this brain, this awareness. And we want to get the source directly, but if we're looking for it outside of ourselves in terms of who we really are, we can only approximate. So I was thinking that you were struggling between your daemon's desire to get some creative related stuff, but the guilt acted as a template that made it hard until recently, until you started sharing openly more. Then you can get it directly. It's designing tarot cards. And so at our site, psychicdeals.com/mysticlifetarot, all small letters, thank you. There's all these expressions of art that we could have done, 4 years ago. But it's as we clear up any guilt about withholding, about, fears that keep us from sharing things, then we just dissolve the lenses and we get the wisdom from the source directly as to what is real. Just utilizing honesty to get clear. We had that reading, we did a 4-card reading at that site I mentioned, and it was clarity for you, clarity for me, pleasure between us, and pleasure as a lesson. And I've never seen a reading that has 2 and 2. And so it's that's our natural state, is clarity. And so you were approximating this source concept of art, but it was filtered, and the light was redirected.
Right.
Because that's what guilt does. So if we get rid of our guilt and we put ourselves around people that know who we are and like us anyway, that's healing. That's how we deprogram all the socialization about performing a role to be liked or loved or employed. And that's all I got to say about that.
Let's cut out
the melodrama, so we can wake up the whole wide world. Let's make up and start all over, and awaken the boys and the girls.